With Vinland Saga Season 2 coming right around the corner, how could I not talk about my favorite opening from the show? Vinland Saga's first opening, Mukanjyo, is nothing short of amazing. It captures the sense of adventure and the brutal lifestyle of the Vikings, while containing subtle foreshadowing without spoiling anything. Before we get into things, spoiler warning if you have not watched Vinland Saga Season 1. Mukanjyo wastes no time. In the first 30 seconds of the opening, you get exactly what you would expect for an anime about Vikings. A dog-eat-dog world, pun intended. We see 3 of Askeladd's ships sailing in the harsh winter, complemented with amazing cinematography. As we see different shots of the ships, while that is going on, we see small snippets of Thorfinn getting ready for battle. Following the ships, we cut to a raging battle as Vikings charge towards the screen, leaving behind a wake of destruction, as seen by the corpses and destroyed village, before we see shots of Thorfinn running through the forest, mixed with gruesome shots of war, with a small Thorkel cameo. The intro sequence serves as a great introduction to the series. From these 30 seconds, you can tell that this season will be about a young boy's journey in an unforgiving Viking world, where it's eat or be eaten. If the visuals didn't tell you that already, the lyrics absolutely should, as they aren't just perfect for this season, but Vinland Saga as a whole. I found some of the English lyrics used in the intro sequence pretty interesting. The first one, "To sink or swim," could be referencing how Thorfinn was forced to quickly adapt once he started his quest for revenge. He could not rely on his family, he could not rely on Askeladd and his crew. Thorfinn could only rely on himself and his own abilities. If he could not defend himself, he was as good as dead. The next one, Dog-Eat-Dog World, is pretty self-explanatory. I believe it's describing how Vinland Saga's world is, and I couldn't have agreed more. People will do whatever it takes to be successful, even if that means harming others. This can be shown through Askeladd, as while he despises the Vikings' way of living, he still partakes in it, as he knows he'll benefit greatly. The dog-eat-dog world mentality is the complete opposite of Thor's teachings, which is why it's so tragic how Thorfinn has fallen to the point where he is willing to kill innocent people, just so he can have a chance at revenge against Askeladd, but fails as he didn't have the dog in him. The following line, "What went wrong," is interesting as it could have different meanings. It could be Thor's looking at Thorfinn's current actions and wondering where he might have gone wrong with raising Thorfinn, as he is not following his wishes and teachings of, "You have no enemies, there is no one it's okay to hurt." The other way you could see this is that this could be from Thorfinn's point of view after losing every duel to Askeladd, as he's wondering why he can't beat him and how it seems that everything that he tries doesn't work. The most interesting one, in my opinion, is the line, "I've paid my dues, I've sold my soul, so what is left for me when I have given up everything?" This right here is a subtle nod to Thorfinn and Askeladd's relationship. Thorfinn has paid his dues and sold his soul, subjecting himself to the Viking lifestyle and doing whatever Askeladd asks of him, just for a chance to duel him. The "so what is left for me when I have given up everything" line foreshadows how Askeladd's death affected Thorfinn. The moment Askeladd died, Thorfinn had lost his life's purpose. For 11 years, he had nothing but revenge on his mind, to the point he ignored Thor's wishes in his dreams as he struggled in vain. I will not go into spoilers here, but this line also foreshadows Thorfinn's inner conflict and journey in Season 2. You know what I'm talking about if you're a manga reader. Following the intro sequence, we see Askeladd at the head of the ship, with Bjorn, his right-hand man, behind him. At the back of the ship, we see Thorfinn polishing his beloved father's dagger. There's not that much to this scene, just amazing cinematography and showing how distant and cold Thorfinn is to the group that he travels with. We then see a duel starting to take place between Thorfinn and Askeladd. It's interesting that Thorfinn and Askeladd duel here, given that this does not happen in the manga. I think this is meant to be a placeholder to hype up the audience, but not spoil the Thorfinn and Thorkel rematch later on in the season, given that this field looks very similar to the one that they fought on. After Thorfinn and Askeladd's duel, we go back to Iceland, where we see young Thorfinn running back to his family's house as we see Thor's and the others clearing snow from their roof. We then have a close-up of Thor's as he smiles once he notices Thorfinn's presence. I could be looking too much into this, but I think Thor's being the only member of Thorfinn's family to have a close-up here is very telling, because once Thor's died, the only person on Thorfinn's mind, aside from Askeladd, was his father, not his mother or his sister. We then have my favorite scene in the opening, where we see Thorfinn and his family on what seems to be on top of a mountain, huddled around a rock, underneath the northern lights. At the surface, it doesn't seem like there's much here, just a sad scene with nice visuals. I wouldn't blame you, as I thought the same thing when I first saw this scene. I think it's interesting that Thorfinn and Thors are on one side of the mountain, while Helga and Ylva are on the other. In their eyes, their family was split apart and both Thors and Thorfinn were dead. I think this is further supported by how Ylva is crying and being comforted by her mother. Also, I could be mistaken, but I believe the Northern Lights here are a reference to how the Vikings used to believe that Odin, the chief god and ruler of Asgard, who lived in Valhalla, would send Valkyries to lead chosen warriors to Valhalla. The chosen warriors here being Thorfinn and Thors. We then see a ship sailing through a lightning storm, before we see the mysterious but beautiful Vinland, as we cut to a time-lapse for all of the phases of Thorfinn's life that we will see this season. There's nothing much here aside from nice visuals, my favorite being the Thorfinn time-lapse of course. Following that scene, we see King Suin, but his face is covered in the shadows, to get the audience's interest but not giving away too much to spoil his role in the season. We then see Floki and the Jom Vikings, one of the king's main supporters. After the Jom Vikings, we see a small montage that doesn't have much to it but is pretty nice. In the montage, we see Thor's heavily wounded, Thor's dagger in gear, Helga and Ylva talking, Bjorn eating a berserker mushroom and going on a rampage, followed by Thorkel going on a rampage of his own, before we see the priest, Ragnar, and Canute, who just like his father, has his face covered by the shadows for the same reasons. And finally, we have the star of the season himself, Askeladd, who is surrounded by his men. After the montage, in the last shot of the opening, we see an angry Thorfinn clutching his chest, looking into the sky as he is surrounded by corpses and weapons. I really like this scene, but the problem is, I feel like this scene just like with the song having the lyrics of, "So what is left for me when I have given up everything," is foreshadowing Thorfinn's inner conflict and journey, not only in season 2, but for the rest of the series. I won't spoil, but manga readers, there is a certain chapter in the Farmland arc that this scene reminds me of. If you know, let me know in the comments. Mukanjyo is an amazing opening. The song and visuals perfectly represent the anime and does it without spoiling anything. Unfortunately, that can't be said for Vinland Saga's second opening, Dark Crow, but that's a video for another day. With that being said, Vinland Saga Season 2 is upon us, and that means a new opening and ending are coming, along with more Vinland Saga content coming from me. I can't wait to see one of my favorite arcs in manga finally be animated. Please Mappa, do it justice.